their industries. Remember, we said import substitution also lead to diversification of the economy. So as South Africa, we must no longer focus on agriculture only, as well as mining and fishing. Okay, we must now expand our economic activities to be diversified. So we need to develop new industries. Okay, so remember, as the country, we export heavily those minerals and import finished goods because of inaccess to capital. We must now start by investing in manufacturing activities so that we may become less vulnerable to these developed countries. So if we apply protectionism, therefore we are forced to produce these goods ourselves. Therefore, we expand and diversify our economic activities. So that is the first one. And then the second one, the policy of protectionism, protect infant industries. A child that is between 0 to 2 years is regarded as an infant. So that is the stages of early stages of development. So in order for these industries to survive, they need to be protected up until they can compete. Because remember, we've made an example when we discussed import substitution by saying that when you compared Levi's versus Tshepo jeans in South Africa. So we said that Levi's have economies of scale because it's well established. But the Tshepo, it's an infant industry in South Africa. It's a new producer. His brand, I think he started sometime around in 2015. So Tshepo is faced with a challenge of a higher development cost, higher advertising cost, higher unit cost of production. So Tshepo must be protected so that can survive up until Tshepo is efficient, effective, and competitive. So because our local industries, especially new industries, are less competitive in the market, so they need protection from the government. Remember, even if a child, an infant, goes to clinic, on maybe it can be after 2 months, sometimes after 6 weeks, to get an injection. That injection is supposed to boost, assist, or yes, help this kid, particularly with immune system, because infants' immune system cannot fight alone against bacteria, infections, as well as viruses. So they need injections or vaccines. So until some other time, their immune system becomes strong. So even the case to our infant industries, they need protection. They need this from the government up until they become effective, efficient, and competitive. Right. And then number 3, we talk about self-sufficiency and strategic industries. When we are self-sufficient, it is when we are able to produce goods and services to satisfy our needs and wants as the country. So for us to restrict more imported goods, it means we can produce them for ourselves. Then the country becomes less vulnerable to other countries. Okay, particularly with regard to food. You see now the issue of food security. It's starting to become a problem in South Africa, whereby now we see prices of certain goods, particularly under food, being or increasing by more than the inflation rate. You've seen that potatoes are one of the products uh, that have seen a significant increase in its prices uh, earlier this year or later last year. Eggs, remember that bird virus that attacked chickens in South Africa. We saw a less production of eggs in South Africa, and they increased. Its price increased by higher margins. So if now we say we are self-sufficient and protect our key industries such as agriculture, oil, coal industries, it means in times of crisis, such as that bird flu, we will be able now to produce food for our own selves so that we secure the issue of food. We don't become hungry. The poverty does not decrease in higher percentages, right? So it means now when you apply protectionism, we have those industries that are seen as essential and self-sufficient or independent. So we are good in agriculture for food security. So other industries can be seen as strategic. Remember, we have Sasol, the Sasol firm that produce petroleum products for us in South Africa. It also drives the issue of employment. It creates jobs. So this is one of our manufacturing firm in South Africa. We have one in Sasolburg in the Free State, and the other one, the other plant, it's in Mpumalanga. Yes, so this may be seen as a key industry in South Africa. It needs to be protected. Remember, South Africa also import crude oil uh, from other countries such as Russia. So it means Sasol as our industry, our domestic industry or factory must be protected against the foreign industries from Russia. Okay. And then number 4 is issue of employment. So if now we say we protect our newly established industries, if now we say we develop new industries so that we diversify our economy, that means the demand for labor is going to increase, driving unemployment low or employment higher. So the demand for labor will increase because we now have industries. Industrialization is promoted in South Africa, so job opportunities increase, which will increase employment in South Africa. So they say trade protection is a measure to control unemployment. South Africa has a very high unemployment rate. The official unemployment rate now in the first quarter of 2024 was estimated at 32.9%. So remember, last year it was in 2023, quarter 4, it was measured at 32.1. So there is an increase in the unemployment rate of 0.8% according to the statistics. South Africa, the quarterly labor force survey that was performed between quarter 4 and quarter 1 of this year. So it means now to increase employment or decrease unemployment, we need to apply protectionism so that we develop our industries, new industries that are are there in South Africa, they must be protected so that we increase employment, job opportunities in our country. Right. We said we have 9. So this is number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and then number 5. Stable wage levels and the standard of living. You know, in the world, I think according to research, India from Asia is the top country which has cheap labor. So these countries with cheap labor are a threat to countries like South Africa because they say they produce less. Because remember, the labor cost as a cost of production can constitute plus or minus 50% of the total production cost. Right. So the country with relatively low wage levels, such as India, can be able to produce with a lower unit cost and export their goods to South Africa with low prices because of their low cost of production. So countries such as India can be a threat to South Africa because they have cheap labor in their country. They are able to produce with lower cost. So they can be able to export their products here in South Africa at a lower cost than the domestic prices of domestic producers in South Africa. Right. So they threatened our local industries because their goods will be exported at lower prices than our domestic prices. Because remember, uh, the standard of living in South Africa is not as higher as those developed countries. So we still have people who benefit in purchasing or consuming this low cost imported products. So it means now the consumers will demand more of products from India instead of locally produced. So hence they say they are a threat. So workers' salaries and jobs are also threatened. Consequently, their standard of living because of they can be retrenched. So once someone who was working is retrenched, that means the particular individual has no income anymore. The demand for goods and services, it means a particular person without income cannot be able to satisfy even the basic needs. Okay, so the poverty will increase. That will impact the standard of living negatively. So the trade policies, which is protectionism, must be used to protect the local workers and businesses in South Africa against those businesses in India. Right. So that is, so if you apply protections, it leads to stable wages and it maintains the quality standard of living of individuals because of they are able to secure their income. The same applies to dumping. What is this dumping? It is when a foreign country sells their products here in South Africa at a price that is lower than their original cost price or the cost price in their original country. They can produce a product at 100 rand. That is their average cost in their country. And then they sell it in South Africa at a price less than the average cost price. So That is called dumping. One of the countries that dump their products here, it's USA, as we have mentioned from uh, the press conference, from the speech. That's what that was mentioned from Malema, saying that this boned in chicken that is not consumed in USA is dumped here in South Africa. So this dumping threatens our local poultry industry because they cannot compete with low prices that are charged by USA uh, poultry businesses. So protectionism, if applied, it will prevent foreign industries from dumping their surplus products in South African local market. So this will lead to our local producers, local industries closing down their businesses because there will be higher demand for this imported chicken than locally produced chicken in South Africa. Because remember, the one that USA dumps here, it is dumped at a cheaper prices than the one that is produced by our locally or domestic producers. So this may in turn also impact negatively on employment because if these local poultry firms or industries in South Africa close down, it means workers who were working in those factories will be forced to go home with no jobs, with no income. So the unemployment will also increase. So protection is needed in order to prevent dumping foreign countries from dumping their surplus production in our local market. Okay, because it is they are sold at lower prices than the original prices in the original country. Okay. So number 7, stable exchange rate. Remember what is exchange rate? It is a price of rent against other currencies. For example, a dollar, a euro. So remember, South Africa uses a free floating exchange rate. Free floating, it means that uh, the exchange rate is determined purely by the market forces for demand and supply. All right. So if as a country we import too much, this exchange rate, uh, dollar to rent exchange rate, quantity, and then zero. If as a country we import too much from other countries, in this case, USA, right? If the demand for imported goods increases, you see now the demand shifts uh, from D to D1. We had original equilibrium here at E0. Now, when the demand increases for imports, that means the currency of that country, which is USA here in dollars, will also increase, forcing the exchange rate now to increase. So you see now, if we demand more imported goods from other countries, for like USA, rand depreciates. That means our currency become weak, okay, against US dollar. But if we demand less, D2, D2, and then E2, if we demand less, you see now quantities demanded of imported goods decrease. We have a new equilibrium here, which is E2, and then the exchange rate goes to 16 rand per US dollar. Then now we say the rand will appreciate. Okay, the rand now becomes strong. So it means now these are what we say are the market forces that influence or determine the price of currency in the market, in the forex market. So we say now protectionism will lead to less imported goods. That will also give a rand a chance to breathe, to become stronger, to gain value at least against the US dollar. So if we apply protectionism, the exchange rate becomes stable, relatively constant over time. And we also deal with that deficit, the trade deficit that appears in the current account of the balance of payment, whereby now imports, the country imports more than it exports. Okay, so that deficit will be corrected because we apply protectionism that shield and reduce the value of imports in South Africa, right? Because remember, when you apply protectionism, we also we charge tariffs, we increase quotas, we provide subsidies, right, for our domestic producers. So that means these two will reduce imported goods and subsidies will increase exports of goods and services. So these two here will reduce the deficit in the current account of the balance of payment. So they say protectionism helps to prevent the value of imports from increasing at a faster rate than the value of exports, resulting in a current account deficit and fluctuations in the exchange rate system. Right. So protectionism is needed to reduce deficit in the balance of payment and also to minimize the fluctuations, because as the country or our country, remember, uses the free floating exchange rate system, whereby the currency values are determined or influenced by the pure market forces for demand and supply. Right. And then number 8 here, which one did we miss? We'll also check because they are supposed to be 9. We'll also check number 9 here, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right. Protecting our natural resources. In grade 11, we discussed about the north and the south divide. We said here we have rich countries in the north In the south, we have poor countries. And then what happens is that with regard to the environment, these are the countries of mass production. They have too many industrial activities. Therefore, these activities, they damage the environment. Hence, we have global warming. So many countries release these carbon emissions into the atmosphere. Okay, and then they damage the ozone layer. Therefore, the earth is no longer protected. Then we have that climate change, which is also referred to as global warming. But these poor countries, they are only suffers. In fact, suffer uh, according to those damages that are done by what? By North. So these foreign countries, if protection is not applied, they can come to South Africa and exploit our natural resources. Remember, South Africa is one of the countries that is rich in minerals. And these minerals, because they are provided free by the nature and the environment, they must be protected because they also extinct and they also exhaustible. So to protect them from extinction, we must apply conservation. And for us to apply conservation, we need to apply protectionism. Okay? Not to allow foreigners to come and deplete our natural resources. By protecting or implementing a policy of protectionism, conservation and better utilization of natural resources can be ensured. So it means now we conserve and preserve our natural resources because we understand the importance of our environment. Okay. So these foreigners will come and exploit our environment because remember, among them, the effects of industrial activities, because that they only see the environment as a common resource that can be used to maximize profits. So we need now to protect us as we have done. They say the South African government have taken the firm steps to protect the rooibos tea as our natural resource. So those protection policies will ensure the survival. Remember, one of the animals or animal species that is facing the danger of extinction can be rhinos because people now make a lot of money with rhino horns. Okay. So for them to extract those rhino horns, it means rhinos must be killed. So to protect our animal species from foreigners, we must conserve through protection policy so that we protect our minerals. We protect because remember, those minerals are our national assets. So if they are exploited by the foreigners, they extinct, they become exhaustible. It means the country will be left with nothing to survive. Right. I want to check the one that I did not discuss here.